Imagine rushing down a rain-soaked highway in the middle of the night with a stranger bleeding in the back seat of your rusted pickup truck while your little daughter keeps asking, "Daddy, is she going to die?" And 2 weeks later discovering that the woman you saved isn't just anyone. She's a powerful millionaire whose decision will completely change your life forever. If you believe one moment of kindness can rewrite destiny, hit subscribe right now, because this story proves that sometimes the people the world overlooks are the very ones fate chooses to reward. The night everything changed for Daniel Carter began like most nights had for him since his wife died 3 years earlier. Tired, quiet, and heavy with responsibilities that felt too big for one man to carry alone. Daniel was a construction worker in a small Ohio town, the kind of man whose hands were permanently rough from hauling lumber and pouring concrete. The kind of man who skipped meals sometimes so his 6-year-old daughter Lily would never have to. Their little house at the edge of town was barely holding together, the roof leaking whenever it rained and the heater coughing like an old smoker during the winter. But Lily never complained because Daniel had turned their life into a series of small adventures. Pancake breakfasts shaped like animals, flashlight storytelling during power outages, and long talks about dreams while sitting on the porch watching trucks pass by on the distant highway. That evening, Daniel had just finished a 12-hour shift repairing a warehouse roof and picked Lily up from his neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, who watched her while he worked late shifts. Rain had started pouring so heavily that the windshield wipers on his 1998 pickup could barely keep up. The road through the wooded hills outside town was almost empty, just the occasional pair of headlights passing like ghosts through the storm. Lily had fallen asleep clutching her stuffed rabbit when suddenly Daniel saw a flash of light ahead. Metal twisted along the roadside, one car sideways against a guardrail, another crushed against a tree. He slammed on the brakes, heart pounding. "Stay in the truck, sweetheart," he whispered. But Lily stirred awake anyway as thunder cracked overhead. Daniel ran toward the wreckage and saw a luxury black sedan smashed beyond recognition. The driver's door hung open, rain pouring into the cabin. Inside, slumped against the steering wheel, was a woman maybe in her late 30s or early 40s, blood trickling down her temple. For a moment, Daniel froze, because people in small towns sometimes learned the hard way that accidents could become legal nightmares, that helping strangers could bring police questions, insurance battles, even accusations. But then the woman let out the faintest sound, barely more than a breath, and Daniel's conscience made the decision for him. He checked for a pulse. Weak, but there. Her phone lay shattered on the floorboard. No signal. The road had no traffic tonight, and the nearest hospital was 20 minutes away. Daniel ran back to his truck. Lily sat wide-eyed in the passenger seat. "Daddy?" she whispered. "I need you to be brave for me," he said, lifting the unconscious woman as carefully as he could and placing her across the back seat. Lily held a napkin from their fast food dinner against the woman's bleeding forehead while Daniel sped through the storm, tires splashing through flooded patches of road. Every minute felt like an hour. Lily kept asking questions in a tiny, trembling voice. "Is she somebody's mommy? Does she have kids? Are we going to make it?" Daniel didn't have answers. All he could do was drive. When they finally reached Mercy General Hospital, nurses rushed out with a stretcher after seeing the blood. Doctors pulled the woman inside while Daniel stood dripping rainwater in the emergency entrance holding Lily's hand. A nurse asked him questions, where he found her, what happened, his name, his number. But once the paramedics took over, Daniel quietly slipped away because his truck was still running outside and Lily was shivering in her pajamas. By the time police arrived, Daniel and Lily were already driving home through the fading storm, assuming they'd never hear anything more about it. The next morning, life returned to normal, or what passed for normal in Daniel's world. He went to work before sunrise, packed Lily's school lunch, and spent the day lifting beams at the construction site while worrying about overdue bills and the landlord's warning about rent. The accident became just another strange memory. But 14 days later, something unexpected happened. Daniel came home from work to find 3 black SUVs parked outside his tiny house. For a moment, his stomach dropped. He thought maybe something had gone wrong. Maybe the police had come with questions about the accident. Instead, a sharply dressed woman stepped out and asked politely, "Is this the home of Daniel Carter?" Daniel nodded cautiously, Lily peeking from behind his leg. Then another car door opened, and out stepped the woman from the crash. Her head was bandaged, but her posture was confident, elegant, unmistakably powerful. "Mr. Carter," she said softly, "you saved my life." Her name was Victoria Hale, a technology entrepreneur whose companies were worth hundreds of millions. The night of the crash, she had been driving back from a business meeting when another driver lost control and sent her car spinning into the guardrail. If Daniel hadn't pulled her from the wreck and driven her to the hospital, the doctor said she would have died from internal bleeding. Daniel didn't know what to say. He shrugged awkwardly. Anyone would have done the same. Victoria glanced around at the worn paint on the house, the sagging porch steps, Lily's patched backpack hanging by the door. "Not everyone would stop in a storm on an empty road," she replied. She knelt down to Lily. "You helped too, didn't you?" Lily nodded shyly. Victoria smiled, and that's when the first twist in their story began. She handed Daniel an envelope. Inside was a check so large Daniel thought it had to be a mistake. He tried to refuse it immediately, saying he didn't save her for money. But Victoria shook her head gently. "This isn't payment," she said. "It's gratitude, and maybe the beginning of something bigger." Over the next week, Victoria returned several times, learning about Daniel's life, his late wife, his struggle raising Lily alone. She discovered that Daniel once dreamed of opening his own carpentry workshop, but had abandoned the idea after medical bills wiped out his savings. Then another twist emerged. Victoria wasn't just grateful. She was searching for someone she could trust. Years of running companies had filled her world with executives who only cared about profit. The man who stopped in the rain to save a stranger with nothing to gain impressed her more than any business resume ever could. One afternoon, she offered Daniel a job, not as a construction worker, but as a facilities manager for one of her company's new community housing projects. The salary was triple what he earned. At first, Daniel thought she was joking, but she wasn't. Within months, Daniel moved Lily into a small but beautiful home built through the housing project he now helped manage. Lily started attending a better school. Daniel finally opened the carpentry workshop he had dreamed about, designing furniture for the project's homes. But the story didn't end there, because the biggest twist came nearly a year later when Victoria revealed the truth about why that rainy night had changed her more than anyone realized. During her recovery in the hospital, lying awake while machines beeped around her, she kept remembering the frightened little girl pressing a napkin to her forehead and the exhausted father driving through the storm to save a stranger. Victoria had spent years chasing wealth, building empires, appearing on magazine covers. But that moment showed her something she had forgotten, that the most valuable things in life were acts of kindness that asked for nothing in return. And so the project Daniel helped manage became only the first of many. Together, they expanded it across several towns, building affordable homes for families who needed a second chance. Reporters eventually asked Victoria what inspired her new mission. She always gave the same answer: a man with an old pickup truck who stopped in the rain. Daniel never considered himself a hero. To him, the real miracle was watching Lily grow up in a world with more opportunities than he ever had. But sometimes late at night when the rain hit the roof, he would remember that dark highway and realize how strange life could be. That one decision, one moment of compassion on a lonely road, had rewritten 3 lives forever. And if there's one thing this story proves, it's that the smallest act of kindness can echo further than anyone imagines, changing destinies in ways no one could ever predict.